Have you tried Deep Research yet? When ChatGPT first launched this feature, it was locked behind a $200 plan. Now, it's basically everywhere. ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude all have it. On paper, the promise is huge. Give them a messy, open-ended question, and they'll spend hours researching the web for you. But if you've used AI for more than 5 minutes, you already know the catch. A beautiful 20-page report doesn't always mean it's actually useful. So in this video, I don't care who writes the prettiest essay. I care about one thing. When you give these tools a real job, can they actually help you make a decision? To find out, I tested them on 4 distinct challenges. We're looking at a consumer purchase, a travel plan, a coding project, and a complex business task. These aren't abstract political essays. They're the kind of decisions we actually make in real life. For each task, I used exactly the same prompt for all 3 models to keep things fair. I've put all the prompts and the full reports in the description below. So if you're curious, you can verify everything yourself. But I didn't just read the reports. I fact-checked them against reality. I compared their travel advice against my experience living in China and their coding tips against actual development work. So if you're wondering which deep research is actually worth paying for, or which one you can trust to keep you out of trouble, this video is for you. Let's get started. So first things first, let's talk about the barrier to entry. As of late 2025, Deep Research isn't free. On all 3 platforms, this feature is locked behind their paid subscriptions. Roughly speaking, you're looking at that standard $20 a month price point. But here's the important part. Paying doesn't mean unlimited. Each platform handles their usage limits very differently. Take ChatGPT. It gives you a monthly bucket. For Plus users, it's about 25 runs. Once you burn through that, you're downgraded to a light version until your month resets. Then there's Gemini. Right now, it is the most generous. Their limit feels more like a daily cap. With the advanced plans, you can run dozens of reports a day, making it the best option for high-volume work. Claude is the tricky one. It doesn't have a separate research bucket. It shares the same usage limits as your normal chat and coding, and because Deep Research consumes so many tokens, it is very easy to hit a wall with Claude. So, here is a pro tip for you. Before you hit that Deep Research button and waste your quota, spend 5 minutes talking to a reasoning model first. Use something like GPT 5.1 or Gemini 3.0 Pro to refine your research need. Okay, let's get into the tests. I picked 4 specific scenarios that represent the most common ways we use AI today. First up, the consumer decision. Buying wireless earbuds in 2025. The market is flooded with options, right? So I want the AI to cut through the marketing noise and tell a normal person what to actually buy. Second, the logistics challenge. Planning a first-time trip to China. This isn't just writing a poem about Beijing. I need accurate visa rules, payment apps, and safety tips. It's a high-stakes test of accuracy. Third, the learning curve. I asked them how to learn vibe coding from scratch. This tests if the AI can act as a teacher. Can it build a curriculum for a brand new skill? Or is it just giving me a definition? And finally, the work task. Choosing a PDF extraction solution for a company. This is a B2B decision. We need to compare technical tools and pricing models. The boring but important stuff we do at work. So we have a buying guide, a travel plan, a learning roadmap, and a business analysis. Let's see how they did. I ran this prompt on all 3 platforms. In reality, this took about 20 minutes of deep searching, but I've sped it up here. So, let's start with a decision we all have to make eventually. Buying a new pair of wireless earbuds. The market in 2025 is absolutely flooded. You have Sony, Bose, Apple, plus 100 budget brands. Now, here is my problem. I am a complete newbie. I don't know what a frequency response curve is. I don't care about driver size. I just have a budget and I don't want to buy garbage. So I asked all three AIs the same question. Tell me what to buy and what to avoid. First up, ChatGPT. Reading this report feels like browsing a Best Buy catalog. It lists all the big names, and it has something nice to say about everyone. For the Sony flagship, it says, "Call quality is serviceable. Best for audio enthusiasts." It feels like a diplomat trying not to offend the manufacturers. It's polite, it's organized, but it's also useless. If I read this, I still have no idea which one to actually buy. Then we have Gemini. This one is for the geeks. It immediately starts throwing technical terms at me. It describes the Technics earbuds like this. Distinguishes itself through the use of magnetic fluid drivers, suspended by a physical damper. Magnetic fluid drivers? Look, maybe that's amazing technology, but as a normal user, I don't know if that makes my Spotify playlist sound better, or if it's just marketing hype. And then, there is Claude. And honestly, this is my favorite, because Claude acts like a toxic Reddit user who has actually tested these things. Let's look at how it handles a $400 product, the Bowers & Wilkins Pi 8. ChatGPT called them luxury. Gemini talked about carbon cone drivers. But look at what Claude found. Poor call quality. Stay away from B&W. All models have trash call quality. Trash call quality. It didn't say suboptimal. It said trash. This is exactly what I need to know. If I spent $400 and sounded like I was underwater on a phone call, I would be furious. Claude just saved me a lot of money. It does the same thing for Sony. It warns about a battery lottery problem. It says the right earbud tends to die first. This is the kind of deep, long-term user feedback you usually only find after digging through page 50 of a forum thread. Claude put it right on page 1. But it's not just negative. When I asked for a budget pick, Claude gave me a specific recommendation. It called the OnePlus Buds 4 the pound-for-pound champs. That is confidence. It's not saying consider these, it's saying buy these. So, for this scenario, Claude is the clear winner. ChatGPT gave me a brochure. Gemini gave me a spec sheet. But Claude gave me a decision. So, scenario 2, the logistics challenge. I asked all three AIs to plan a first-time trip to China. Now, here is why this is the ultimate test. Traveling to China in 2025 isn't like going to France or Japan. You are landing on a different digital planet. Google Maps doesn't work. Uber is gone. You can't pay with Visa cards. And your internet is blocked by a firewall. If the AI gives you generic advice here, you aren't just inconvenienced. You are stranded. I live in China. I deal with this digital wall every single day, so I know exactly what works and what is hallucination. Let's start with ChatGPT. It gave me a very standard Beijing, Xi'an, Shanghai itinerary. The writing is nice. It sounds like a friendly travel blog. But then I looked at the survival tips, and I got worried. It advised me to carry cash as backup because street vendors prefer cash. This is bad advice. In 2025, China, cash is basically dead. If you try to pay for a taxi or a coffee with a 100 RMB bill, the driver literally won't have change. You will be stuck standing on the street corner. Then, about the internet, it said, popular VPNs like NordVPN generally work. This is optimistic. While NordVPN is famous, anyone who travels to China knows it can be very hit or miss. Especially during sensitive times or holidays, standard VPN apps often struggle to connect. ChatGPT fails to warn you about these reliability issues. If you rely only on this, you might spend your first day stressed out, trying to find a server that works. Next, Gemini. This report feels like it was written by a government official. It is obsessed with rules. It nailed the specific visa policies for 2025. It knows about the 144-hour transit rules. It even budgeted my trip down to the cost of a bowl of noodles. If you are applying for a visa or making an Excel sheet, Gemini is your best friend. But for street smarts, it's a bit rigid. And then, Claude. Once again, Claude feels like a local expat who actually lives here. It didn't just say download a map. It warned me about a specific technical problem. It said, Google Maps coordinates are inaccurate. Use a map or Apple Maps. This is the GPS drift problem. Due to encryption laws, Google Maps in China is often shifted by 500 meters. Claude knew this. The others didn't. And look at its advice on the internet. It quotes a user saying, NordVPN doesn't work. A British traveler bought an iPhone specifically for Holofly eSIM. This is the pro move. Instead of fighting with VPN apps that might get blocked, Claude suggests using a roaming eSIM. Because roaming data is routed through foreign servers, it bypasses the firewall automatically. It's a much more stable solution for a short trip. Claude is the only one that gave me this modern, stress-free option. It even gave me the specific setup order for payment apps. Download Alipay before WeChat, because it knows WeChat verification is harder for foreigners. So the verdict? Gemini gets the paperwork right. ChatGPT is a nice tour guide, but it might get you stranded. Claude is the one that actually ensures you can eat, pay, and survive. So, Scenario 3, Vibe Coding. This is probably the hottest topic in tech right now. The idea is that English is the new programming language. You just describe your app, vibe with the AI, and it builds itself. But if you have actually tried this, you know it is not that simple. And honestly, this is where the reports showed the biggest difference in intelligence. ChatGPT gave me a standard computer science syllabus. It told me to learn about APIs, databases, and frameworks. It was correct, but it felt like a university textbook. It didn't warn me about the pain that was coming. Claude, on the other hand, nailed the reality of AI programming. It identified something it calls the 70% trap. Here's the concept. AI will get you to a working prototype incredibly fast. The first 70% of the project feels like magic. But the last 30%? That is where projects go to die. You hit a wall of environment errors, broken dependencies, and infinite debugging loops. Claude was the only one that bluntly told me, the bottleneck has moved. Your job is no longer typing code. Your job is now reviewing code. So, what do you actually need to learn to survive this? I asked all three models to draw a red line. What technical skills can I skip? And what must I learn? Gemini and Claude were excellent here. They agreed that you can basically ignore syntax. You don't need to memorize how to write a for loop in Python anymore. The AI handles that perfectly. But they highlighted the must-knows. Things like environment variables. You need to know what a .env file is, so you don't accidentally upload your API keys to the internet. And Git. This is non-negotiable. Gemini emphasized that because AI behaves like a chaotic junior developer, it will break your working code eventually. Git is your undo button. If you don't know how to use it, you are playing with fire. This leads to the final verdict on mindset. ChatGPT is still stuck in 2023, teaching you about prompt engineering, trying to find the perfect magic words. But Claude and Gemini push a new philosophy: product management. Claude suggests a plan mode. Before you let the AI write a single line of code, you ask it to write a detailed architectural plan. You review the plan, then you let it code. This reason, then act workflow is the secret to vibe coding. So, who wins? If you want to define terms, use ChatGPT. If you want specific config files, like setting up a .cursor rules file, Gemini is actually very strong, but for the strategy, for understanding how to think in this new era, Claude is the only true mentor here. It doesn't just give you code, it teaches you how to survive the 70% trap. Okay, scenario 4, the heavy lifter. PDF data extraction. This sounds boring, I know, but if you run a business, you know this is where money burns. Invoices, contracts, purchase orders. Turning these messy PDFs into structured data is a nightmare. I've actually built systems like this before, so I know that AWS TextRack struggles with tables, and I know that enterprise SaaS tools can cost $50,000 a year. I wanted to know, can Deep Research actually replace a senior engineer in making this decision? Or is it just going to give me a marketing summary? Let's look at Gemini first. Gemini acted like a system architect. It wrote a beautiful strategic analysis. It perfectly categorized the market into 3 layers: the cloud giants like AWS, the specialized SaaS platforms, and the new Gen AI options. If I needed to explain the theory of document processing to my CEO, this is the report I would print out. It is academic, structured, and very safe. But then I opened Claude's report, and honestly, this blew me away. Claude acted like a consultant who is actually trying to save me money. While the others gave me generic pricing ranges, Claude dug up the dirty details. It explicitly told me that Azure recently cut their custom model pricing by 40%. That is a massive detail that changes the ROI calculation immediately. And it warned me about a hidden cost in Google Document AI. It found a $36 monthly hosting fee for custom processors that the marketing pages usually hide. But the real mic drop moment was when Claude recommended a tool called Dockling. This is a brand new open source library from IBM. Most people haven't even heard of it yet. But Claude knew that Dockling is currently beating the expensive commercial tools at extracting complex tables. This proves that Claude isn't just summarizing the first page of Google results. It is digging into GitHub repositories and technical benchmarks. So, what about ChatGPT? It was fine. It gave me a list. It told me AWS is good for scale, and NanoNets is good for ease of use. It's correct, but it's commodity information. It felt like a project manager who is afraid to have an opinion. So the verdict for the work task: if you want a high-level overview, Gemini is great. But if you actually need to build something, or sign a contract, Claude is the only one I would trust. So after all those tests, who is actually worth your money? Let's give each of them a personality to make this easy. Gemini Deep Research is like an academic architect. It wears a suit. It loves structure. If you need a macroeconomic report or a perfect business outline, it is fantastic. But like many academics, it can be a bit detached from real life, missing those gritty, on-the-ground details. Claude is the hardcore investigator. It's the only one that feels like it's actually in the trenches. It digs up the dirt, warns you about scams, and tells you the ugly truth. Whether it's avoiding a bad VPN in China or a trashy pair of headphones, Claude is the one looking out for you. And ChatGPT's Deep Research? Sadly, right now, it feels like a tour guide with an old map. It gives you the standard, safe answers, the correct fluff, but lacks the depth of the other two. Now, let's look at the numbers behind the scenes. And just to be clear, these are estimates based on my own testing, not official stats. First, source depth. ChatGPT is the shallowest. In my tests, it usually checked only 30 to 50 sources. Theoretically, it can do more, but in daily use, it rarely goes deep. Gemini is solid. For normal tasks, it hits about 1 to 200 sources. For really complex stuff, I've seen it push past 300. It's consistent. Claude is the monster. Even for simple tasks, seeing 200 plus sources is pretty common. But for the hard stuff, it goes absolutely wild. I've seen it process 800, sometimes over 1,000 sources. It is doing a true carpet bombing search. But here is the trade-off: speed. Gemini is the efficiency king. It finishes almost everything in 10 to 20 minutes. Claude varies a lot. For simple requests, it's actually fine, maybe 10 minutes. But for the complex ones, that depends entirely on your prompt. If you ask for a deep dive, be prepared to wait an hour or more.
Why is Claude like this? It's not just about reading more pages. More data doesn't always mean better results. But Claude seems to be throwing a massive amount of compute at every single task. It is thinking harder, checking deeper, and connecting more dots. And that is why the limits are so tight. With the standard Pro plan, you run out of quota very fast. Compare that to Gemini with the Google One AI Premium subscription. You get a decent daily cap, around 20 runs or so, which feels much more usable for daily work.
Now, a quick side note on OpenAI. Just because their deep research feature is weak doesn't mean their tech is behind. If you have the budget for the $200 Pro subscription, you get access to GPT 5.1 Pro. That is a super reasoning model. It can think for 20 minutes straight, longer than some deep research runs. Combined with web search, it effectively replaces deep research entirely. But it is $200. So here is my final verdict. If you need speed and structure, go with Gemini. It's the best bang for your buck for general research. If you have ChatGPT, honestly, skip the deep research button. Just stick with the thinking models with search. They are still the best for daily chat. But if you have a serious decision to make, if you need to avoid a scam, plan a complex trip, or spend real money, go with Claude. It is slow. It is expensive. It runs out of quota, but it is the only one that truly does the deep part of deep research. One last thing. I covered a lot today, but these 12 reports contain so much more info that I couldn't fit into this video. And hey, I'm not an expert in everything, especially audiophile headphones. So if you want to dig in yourself, I've uploaded all the prompts and full PDF reports to a GitHub repository. The link is right there in the description. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.